A guy came up to me and said, I've got 18 people and we work on this project and it takes Monday to Friday. And he said, I can do now with AI the whole thing that these 18 people do with one person at 10 o'clock on a Thursday, whatever it was. They'd just press a button.
Sir Martin Sorrell needs no introduction. As head of S4 Capital, he's building a media and technology empire.
Don Draper, carousing till 4 o'clock in the morning, gets an hour's sleep, goes in, makes a pitch, and the client says, I'll buy it. But it doesn't work like that.
He straight up schools me on the advertising industry.
This year, the industry will hit $1 trillion. Nvidia's worth 2 trillion, 700 billion, £1 billion, 2 billion, 10 times 200. These things move at light speed.
And of course, we talked about AI. There's a tussle between creativity and data this year.
AI will change that.
First of all, thank you so much for doing this.
Pleasure.
The background that
you said that before we got through it, but you may not say it afterwards. But
you have, you don't remember this story.
Yeah.
Only I do. But my first scan, when my agency was just me,
yeah,
I was sitting at we had just won our first line, and I sat down at a table, and my client was there, and then I bought a bottle of wine, and her friends joined, and then their friends joined, which was Sir Martin Sorrell and your friend. First of all, I was really freaked out. You asked me about my agency, asked you about yours, and then suddenly I started thinking, am I going to have to pay for this wine? Is it cordial to ask Sir Martin for Sir Martin for the wine? And I was so panicked and sweating the whole time.
Who paid?
I think the client ended up paying.
Oh,
so
really?
is,
Okay, that's very good. That was your first client?
That was our first client.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who was your first client?
Adidas.
Okay, fine. Good for
Yeah.
you.
Can I Venmo you still?
Yes, you can.
Was the whole point of this. Got it, guys, got the money. There's this myth going around that you turned down $700 million from Stagwell.
That is a myth.
It is a myth.
Yeah. Or rather, let me put it like, it's not even a credible myth.
What do you know where it came from, or why would
I think it was a figment of Mark Penn's imagination, but
would you entertain something like that?
No.
Because you're very bullish on what S4 is doing.
No, I think, listen, if you're talking about the value of S4, it's got about £1 billion of revenue.
Yeah.
It only makes 100 million, or people are expecting it to make 100 million EBITDA. So if you use the quotes unquote normal valuation metrics of, let's say, 10 times EBITDA, which most people would throw out, maybe less than that, but let's take 10 times easier maths.
Yeah.
That's $1 billion less 200, there's 800 million pounds. That's one level. Right now, our margins are 10%. I don't know what your margins at your agency are.
It's fascinating that your size of company has that.
But we should be 20 because we used to do 20.
Yeah.
So we properly organize ourselves. We price properly. We bill properly. We utilize properly. Eliminate duplication. We should be doing twice that.
Yeah.
So that would be 2 billion, 10 times 200.
Yeah.
Less 200 debt would be 1.8. So somewhere between 800 and 1.8 million would be the value, depending on what you think our margin should be. We're a listed company as well.
Yeah.
So there are certain costs involved in running a listed company. It might be 10 or 15 million. So you might add that back in terms of synergies. So, but that's not the point. The point is we have 13 client relationships, which account for 55% of our revenues. We have a big tech position like you do.
Yeah.
Accounts for about 45% of our revenue. So we want to continue to run the business. I mean, the onus is on us, and management owns, unlike most companies, listed companies, there's a split between ownership and control. There's management and owners.
Yeah.
We're owner managed. Like 40% of the company is owned by people in the company. So it wasn't appropriate. It wasn't credible, but it wasn't appropriate.
Yeah, it seems preposterous for also the share of wallet you have with these companies.
Well, actually, we with the clients, you mean?
Yeah.
Actually, our share of wallet is limited. I mean, there's more to go for, maybe one or two exceptions.
Yeah.
But I think that's an interesting question in the sense that we could be even more significant with the people that we work with. So I would disagree with you. I say our share of wallet, as you put it, should be greater.
Your partnership with Adobe, could you explain that?
Well, Adobe have technology which is used, it's probably the only game in town
Yeah.
I hesitate to use the word they have a monopoly.
Yeah.
But the Australian competitor has a
Canva
has an alternative, but very much for individual creators and smaller scale. For what I call hyper-personalization at scale, or personalization at scale, they're pretty much the only game in town. Now they do have partnerships with others, with other agency groups, one or two or three, and they have partnerships with other consultancies, one or two or three. But we have what we think is a special relationship with everybody. They say that they have a special relationship with everybody, but it gives us the opportunity to work very closely with software developers in an area where AI is having, there are 5 areas that I see that's having an impact, and it's probably the area where AI is having the most significant impact, or can have the most significant impact.
What are the other 4?
First is visualization and copywriting.
Yeah.
Third is media planning and buying. Fourth is general efficiency. And fifth is spreading knowledge through the firm. How many people have you got in your agency now?
About 80, between 80 and 90.
So it's making sure that every one of those 80 knows what the other 79
are doing.
Well, yes, and and it's like we have a conversation, and if you can update them on that conversation, or you're having a conversation with a client here, you can update them instantaneously. That makes a difference.
Yeah. And are you, with that partnership with Adobe, do you partner with them and build a bespoke version for S4? Or do you help them build their?
Both is the answer. You try and tailor whatever they have to your needs. But I think, that second area, hyper-personalization at scale, what I call Netflix on steroids, that model, I think, is certainly for clients is a really interesting area. I mean, it's where you can start a conversation with them and they get it, because they're having to deprecate third-party cookies as Google moves people to first-party data plus signals from the platforms.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 sources of data. And what you really have to do is personalize. AI enables you to personalize content at huge scale. I mean, historically, you might be able to produce 1.5 million, in theory, 1.5 million different creative alternatives or content alternatives. You might be able to do multiples of that now. So it's a huge opportunity. The other thing it enables us to do is to charge by output instead of time.
Yeah, that was going to be my question. I don't know
whether you charge by time or charge by output.
I think it's changing, right? Like, that was going to be my next question, is like, if we're an industry that sells time, and now it takes less time to make something.
Less time, yeah, absolutely.
What comes of this industry?
Well, it's worse than that, because I did something like this in Singapore with the editor of Campaign, and as I came off the stage, a guy came up to me who worked at WPP. He said, I've got 18 people, and we work on this project, and it takes Monday to Friday. And he said, I can do now with AI the whole thing that these 18 people do with one person at 10 o'clock on a Thursday, whatever it was, and just press a button.
Yeah.
He said, but I have no incentive to do it, because I'm selling time. And in fact, I'm evaluated inside WPP for selling time. So it doesn't make much point. And that's the problem. So visualization copywriting is being squeezed, I think.
Yeah.
Because less time.
Yeah.
It's a 2-edged sword. Greater efficiency, fewer people.
Yeah.
And client procurement departments are saying taking less time, charges less. That's one thing.
Yeah.
The second bucket, hyper-personalization, will be selling assets. We'll sell a lot more assets, maybe at cheaper prices than we did before.
Yeah.
But the price times the volume will be greater than the price times the volume we did before. So big opportunity, probably more employment as well.
Do you think better agencies will be able to charge more of a premium now? Because it's been pretty, McCann charges the same as me, because there's procurement measuring hours everywhere. I'm not saying that it happens to me right now, but that's kind of like
I mean, you differentiate yourself so well by quality that you can charge more than McCann.
Yeah, I would definitely like to.
No, it doesn't sound as though you're very confident of that.
No, but we do. But I think you asked me how many people we are, right? It's so ingrained in us, in this industry, that growth is people. The amount of people is growth. and the amount of time you can spend on it is...
Whereas Google's what, 160,000, 170,000 people?
Yeah.
And the biggest holding companies are well over 100,000. And look at the relative size of Google and holding companies.
It blows my mind. And
but that's going to change. The AI will change that.
What will happen to those? Let me ask you a different question. I know what's going to happen to them. Do you think any of them will be fast enough to adopt this?
Any of the holding companies?
Yes.
Well, interesting.
Or is it through acquisition?
An analyst came round to see us today who's looked at all the AI offerings of the holding companies and looked at our offering. We have this thing called Monks.Flow, which automates processes using AI basically in 10 areas.
Yeah.
And he said none of the offerings, he said they were all promotional. None of them, except ours, maybe just being nice to us, but this is an industry-leading analyst. Ours were very practical and specific and changed the processes and were products that clients could implement in those 5 areas, those 5 buckets. No, the holding companies, it's difficult for them because there are a couple of problems now. Firstly, they're still linear dominated, meaning linear media dominated, which is declining.
Yeah.
It declined last year, declining again this year. This year is the industry will hit $1 trillion of media value, advertising revenues, and 700 billion of that will be digital, and about 300 billion will be linear. And you just look at Disney, look at Paramount, look at Warner Discovery or Discovery Warner, and you see the problems that linear people are having. And thank goodness for digital. We're positioned as digital, we're positioned as data-driven, we're positioned as faster, better, cheaper, and more with AI.
Yeah.
And unitary brand, and I think that's the way to be. But you're right, I think people in the industry do equate success with number of people employed. I mean, it's like that guy came up to me and said, no, I get credit for having 18 people, but I could replace it by just pressing a button on Thursday at 10 o'clock.
Yeah. Do you think, you said that brand and marketing departments will have to reorganize.
I think they have to take back control.
What do you mean by that?
Well, they surrendered functions. After the great financial crisis in 2008, zero-based budgeting became very vogue. I think it was 3G really, Jorge Lehman and Beta Sikapura and everybody who said, let's, every year when we do budgets, let's go back to ground zero and then rebuild the budget again. Instead of making it iterative, you had 100 last year, let's do 102 this year, or 98, whatever.
Got it.
As a result of that, a lot of functions were pushed out to the agencies, let's say, amongst others.
Yeah.
I think with deprecation of third-party cookies, the importance of first-party data, hyper-personalization at scale, what has to happen is clients have to get more involved in that.
Yeah.
And that permeates a lot of the conversations we've had this week so far, here and before.
And if they take a lot of in, where will it fall? Like, where will they fail? What part of it will... I
don't think they'll necessarily fail. We have to, we've been the subject of a Harvard Business School case study on in-housing T-Mobile and Sprint on the media side. That was on media, not on content. There's nothing wrong. We have 3 models. Outsource, like you have, like we have.
Yes.
Embedded, where we put our people into the client, and then the third is in-house. And we're not trying to do ourselves out of a job, at least in theory, because there's tech after sales service, because you always have to update the tech, and there's people after sales service, because most people, as you know, like variety. They don't like to do just one thing.
Yeah.
So there's always that to come. No, it does ebb and flow a bit, but I think if you said to me, if one end outsource, one end insource, the pendulum is moving to in-house.
In-house. It's so strange because when you talk to advertising people that are not as smart as yourself.
I'm not an advertiser.
No, I'm saying advertising people who aren't as smart as yourself. In their minds, it's
Maybe
not.
They're smarter.
It's not going in-house, but it is. It has.
Well, I think when you rely on first-party data, and I do think that if Google had not reversed for the 3rd time, I think, the deprecation of third-party cookies, it was going to be end of this year.
Right.
That would have been a Y2K moment. You remember the end of the last millennium, we all thought computer systems were going to fail.
Yes, I was hoping.
they could fail on the data side because not many clients are ready for it.
You talked about that there's a tussle between creativity and data this year.
Well, there always is here.
Yeah.
Because the purists don't like seeing all the tech companies here.
Are you talking about purists that are making print ads and winning awards, or
no, the purists in our business, the people, the guys old like me who sit there with rose-tinted spectacles and think back to the glory days. Don Draper carousing till 4 o'clock in the morning, gets an hour's sleep, wakes up, goes in, makes a pitch, and the client says, "I'll buy it in 10 seconds." It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. When I spoke to you 4 years ago, we sat down, you asked me about your agency, but you were very generous, by the way, and you asked me about my agency, and I asked you about what you were going to build, and you said digital.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't even understand what in digital? And you just said, digital. And I was like, I'm not even sure what that means, but like, it took me years to understand what you meant. And I'm sure I'm fully don't understand still, because now it
You're
feels...
just being deliberately naive.
No. Now I feel like, okay, there's going to be a Coke ad for everyone. I didn't know that then. I didn't know that then, that you're going to make like a specific Coke ad just for me.
Yes.
And you're going to make that for 1 million people at the
Sure.
same time, and probably going to cost the same.
In different ways.
In different ways.
Yes, with different themes.
And it's going to
Different
cost the same.
attractions.
And it's going to take less people.
Yeah.
Most people think, in my line of profession, like where I come from, being a creative, that's bad for creatives. I believe that it's...
No, I think it's good.
It's good for the good creatives.
I think data and technology helps you improve creativity. It's not at the cost of creativity. But it's from this, we all like a client. We always used to refer to those type of clients as sort of entrepreneurial clients.
Right.
Owners. Because we thought, you walk into a room and you have an owner.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a committee or she doesn't have a committee, and they say, go ahead.
Yeah.
And do it. But we all love that. I'd love that. The client, instead of having to go through a pitch process, instead of having to go through a contract process, instead of having to deal with procurement, instead of having to deal with spreadsheets.
Couple martinis.
Yeah, a couple of martinis.
Yeah.
I love it. Right?
Yeah.
Let's go and do it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Even in owner-managed companies. Right?
Yeah.
Sometimes, some people are willing to go with their gut.
So what do they need now?
Well, what do you mean, those clients?
Yeah.
Well, I think from a creative point of view, what you're going to see is sort of upper funnel creative, which will be in the same way as we always thought about it. Strategic, the big idea, the Ogilvy big idea,
Positioning somewhere.
everything,
Yeah.
everything. But that gets interpreted through a content factory.
Yeah.
And if I use the word factory, people it immediately turns off people.
Right.
A
Yeah.
content studio is better.
Yes.
Sounds better,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
A
Yeah.
studio,
Small
right?
little studio.
Which, by the way, the client can have,
Yes.
can own,
Yes.
or we can.
Yes.
Or we can embed our people in a client facility.
Yeah.
And the client will have a factory, an engine.
Yeah.
For BMW in Europe, we call it the marketing engine.
Yeah.
And which we do with a couple of other agencies and consultancies. So that's where, in my view, it's going to be. So the big idea,
Yeah.
you are a highly paid, highly expensive,
Yeah.
big
Let's
creative,
not tell my clients that.
thoughtful genius, right? You'll still be doing this stuff up here,
Yeah.
right? But we'll interpret that through the engine.
Right. And we'll be able to make a
we'll
lot
create
of stuff.
tailored stuff,
Yes.
right? Which if it's a car and the head of the car company in France says the French car buyer is different. He or she likes a pink sky and a green car with polka dots,
Right.
and whatever, right?
Right.
We can do that now.
I think
in the old days you had to film it separately. Now you can do it technologically.
I think that's what a lot of people don't understand, that you're still making the big idea, you're still making a bunch of things, and then the computer is making versions of that
That's
are
exactly right.
more
It's
applicable
the implementation.
Yeah.
So you've got strategy
Yeah.
and implementation. And the strategic bit,
Yeah.
I mean, the machine, and maybe at some point in time, Jeffrey Hinton, I think his name was, who resigned from DeepMind and Google because he was worried about the existential threat. It may be that the machine becomes better than you as a creative genius.
I hope not anytime soon. I want to buy my mom an apartment.
No. How old are you now?
I'm 34.
Okay, so probably, you know, maybe by the time you're 40 or 45, there might be a machine around that can do a pretty good job.
Hopefully you've bought me by then. And then I don't have to personally do anything. How does this affect fashion and like not fashion specifically, but retail?
Well, I mean physical retail.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it's omni-channel. I mean, I wouldn't say it's to the exclusion of physical
or all retail. Yeah.
Physical retail, but I do think the direct transaction becomes even more important.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, if you look at the way that people consume things, particularly the younger generations, it is very different. So physical retail will still be there, but in a different way. You know, you might have your show store.
Yeah.
You know, Apple have done extremely well.
Yeah.
In the category.
Does some of this personalization show up in tech there?
Yes, absolutely. At the retail level.
Yeah.
But in order to get people to retail, or in order to demonstrate, you know, in the car business, it's interesting. BMW are going direct. So, in Europe, Mini this year has gone direct. So if I want to order a Mini, I can go direct to the factory. I don't have to go through a dealer. So the dealers have been convinced that they should switch. They will make more return by servicing cars than by selling cars.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're switching that. So the factory can do it. BMW goes direct next year, 25.
And they can make an experience out of the factory.
Well, exactly.
Like
but the factory's never sold a car before, so this is a totally new experience for them.
Yeah.
And of course, for the first time, they will have control of their data because it was the dealers that had control of the data before.
Yeah, and they're...
you see it in the insurance business. The insurance business, there are people who go direct to consumers with a direct sales force.
Yeah.
Where the power of their brand is very powerful with it. And there are other ones who use IFAs, you know, financial counselors, whatever they call them.
Yeah.
Who you have no control over.
Yeah.
They're commission people who sell the products, but the consumer interfaces with them, not directly with the...
Yeah.
You know, Geico is a good example of a company.
Yeah.
That with Progressive, Progressive has a much more direct sales force than an Allstate or a Geico.
If I have a completely serious question, do you and all the rest of the sirs hang out?
No.
You know, man.
No, we don't.
I was hoping I'd get invited to that party.
There is a society, a Knight's Bachelor, I think it's called.
Yeah.
Where you can order ties and all sorts of things. And I think there is a dinner, a lunch. It's funny.
And you don't go?
What?
And you don't? Can I take your invite?
No, I haven't gone to one of those.
Oh man, I would go. I would wait.
You
that would.
go there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you start a Sir's dinner? You can start one.
I'm just. If you acquire my company, do I become a lord or something? I'll take any title.
You can get a French honor, you know, Légion d'honneur or something. Do something in France.
Great.
Good.
I'm hoping for that. I did have a serious question. I just lost it, so I was like, let me ask the question that I really want to ask. Is there a party? How have you, the stamina of this thing? How have you stayed so on top for so long?
Mother's genes.
Oh, well.
No, I was just interested. Fun. My father said, find an industry that you enjoy.
Yeah.
Find a company in it that you enjoy. And build a reputation if you can. Not a reputation to be interviewed by Mo in Cannes. I mean a reputation. And if you want to start your own business, start your own business. That was his advice. Still holds true today. I think the difference today is things are much more volatile. So he believed in long-term brand building. You know, that you stayed with the company, you know, the whole of your life sort of thing. That I don't think rules anymore. And not just because I think people are different and their attention spans are shorter, but I think life is so volatile and economies are so volatile and industries are so volatile that being able to carry on doing something in the same way all the time.
Is that where you find it? Do you try to reinvent like what you're doing, and that's where you find excitement? You know, I've done this for 5 years, and I'm sick of it.
Are you?
At times, you know, like I go through like, I'm very tired, but then I like get really rejuvenated.
Interested, yeah.
Is there a secret to staying
No, I don't know if there's a secret or not. I think there are two buckets. One is geographic and one is technological. And the geographical bucket is changing now. I was in Brazil last week and I came away, I mean, I knew it was there, this global south versus global north thing, this dislike of Western hegemony, of US hegemony in particular. But I didn't realize it was, well, I probably did sort of realize it, but it's really strong. There is a deep dislike amongst many nations for the Western hegemony, not just the US, I mean, European as well.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing, with the rise of China is a very significant change. So that's one thing. So the geography is shifting.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is technology. These changes. I mean, NVIDIA is worth 3 trillion in a nanosecond, basically.
Yeah.
We were having a conversation with somebody from NVIDIA and another platform this morning, and he said NVIDIA's worth 2 trillion. Well, that was a few weeks ago. Now it's worth 3, or close to. So these things move at light speed.
How do you? I'm jumping around here, but like shoppable content. Mm-hmm. Like I used to watch a Pizza Hut commercial, and then I used to walk over to the phone and call Pizza Hut, and then ask them to deliver the thing, or I used to watch a whatever Gucci ad and then try to see if I could go to the store. Yeah. And now it's so immediate.
Yes, right.
And do you think our industry is keeping up to it? And what?
Well, it's not agile enough. That's why I think agility, taking back control, and
do you think that taking back control will lead to like shoppable, more interesting content that you can buy?
Yeah, because I mean, clients will be into that process with their agencies,
right,
not the exclusion of the agencies, in a far more detailed way. I mean, you can see it here at CAM when we go through with our clients the AI products that we have. It's much more intricate, much more detailed, and much more thoughtful in terms of the process. And AI enables you to think about the consumer in totally different ways.
We were going to do this on the public beach earlier, but I understand that putting you on the public beach, we would get mobbed because of how much of a superhero and supervillain you are of advertising.
Oh, this is instead of the public beach. This is because I couldn't. It was so somebody wanted to see. I wanted to see a client. And it was on the time of the public beach, and that's why we shifted.
No, thank you so much for meeting
very
here.
Good.
It's
very
been
good to see
well.
you.
I don't want to take up too much of your time.
No,
thank you so
good.
much.
Very good.